I'm sorry. It's been so long since I've been able to write to you all. The treatments have been much more intensive the last couple of days. I know it's so important I tell you all this. I don't want this for anyone else. The thought of one of you being treated by the people here makes me cringe. But I'm so tired now, and I don't know how many more times I'll be able to pull myself together and be sensible. After the 2 walking skeletons dragged me away from that dingy reception, I was placed in the room that is slowly becoming my home. It's not much, just a small square room with no window and a small door next to the small bed. But it's much better than any of the other rooms here. Neither of them would speak to me, and the woman who had given them instructions wouldn't give me a name. She simply wittered at me in that strange, sickly, sweet voice, which was slowly deepening all the time, that I needed to be calm, or she would make the boys do it for me. I spent 2 nights alone in my room. The only time I saw a glimpse of anyone was when a gnarled, emaciated hand shoved a tray piled high with that tasteless non-food through a gap in the door twice a day. I began to wonder if they were just going to keep me here like this forever when she came back. In my head, I had called her Mary. Her sing-song voice was grotesquely Poppins-esque. Although they were so painfully thin, I called the 2 men the Tweedle twins, D and Dumb. As she walked into the room, I tried to shove past her, hoping I could use my considerable size to my advantage. It was like hitting a parked tank. She didn't move an inch. She laughed girlishly, and the Tweedles wandered in behind her to pick me up from the floor. I had practically bounced off of her and hit the ground hard. Even if you're as fat as me, when you hit a stone floor hard enough, there isn't enough cushion in the world. I didn't bother trying to stop the tears rolling down my face. "There, there," Mary cooed, her voice oddly maternal. "No need for tears, sweet pea. It's a wonderful day. Today, your BABY program starts." She laughed, and although it sounded kindly, I could hear a hint of malice behind it. "What are you going to do to me?" I stammered. There was no point in pretending to be brave anymore. "Well, today we're going to give you your first treatment. You want to get rid of some of that fat, don't you?" I fought the Tweedles the whole way down to the treatment room. Maybe if I had used those muscles years ago in a gym, I wouldn't have been here. It didn't make a damn bit of difference. I was taken there in an iron grip. And when I saw what was in the room, it was only that grip that kept me from hitting the floor for a second time. Well lit and smelling of antiseptic, the room looked like a circular surgical laboratory from a futuristic sci-fi movie. Unlike the filthy reception, the grime-encrusted corridors, or even my musty cell, this room was shockingly sterile. Curved workbenches ran around 2/3 of the room, lined with tools I didn't want to acknowledge. A deep, plastic-coated chair, like a dentist's chair, was off to one side, tubes and cables running from it. The bulk of those tubes ran in a thick bundle along the tiled floor to the center, where they sank into the floor to connect to the room's focal point. Looking at this, my bladder turned to water. My future became incredibly obvious. Rising from the floor and extending nearly to the ceiling was a huge, clear tube filled with a transparent substance. I still don't know what it is, but it's a bit thicker than oil, while thinner than shower gel. Facing the chair was a small computer panel. Cables from this also connected to the chair, And inside the liquid, silent and motionless, was a baby. Naked and withered, the baby's bony little body was suspended in the cylinder by tubes and cables snaking through the fluid from the floor. Like Mary and the Tweedle twins, and despite its immersion, the baby's skin looked scaly and dry and had a sickly green tinge. Its bony chest, each rib standing out in painful definition, steadily rose and fell. Whatever it was alive. "Isn't she beautiful?" breathed Mary from the doorway. Her voice was not so deep now, but her enamored tone made my flesh crawl. She moved past my bulk, pausing only to touch Dumb's hand for a second, and approached the tube. "So beautiful. And when you've begun your program," she said without turning to look at me, "she'll be perfect." I don't know how I got into the chair. I assume the Tweedles put me there. The last thing I saw before blackness had settled was Mary's cracked, chapped, red smile. When I came to, I tried to move my hands. I found them strapped firmly to the arms of the chair, along with my legs. The pain dancing along my skin didn't register at first. I was too concerned with trying to free myself. I watched the Tweedle twins leave the room and fought harder as Mary moved towards the computer panel, her back to me. It was then that I realized that not only was I strapped to the chair, the tubes were connected to me too. Suddenly, the stinging pain hit me in full force. I looked down at my stomach and nearly fell into darkness again. Where the tubes met my skin, what looked like suction pads were clinging to red wheels. But they were not suctioned. Spirals of needles were jabbing into the redness, holding the tubes in place. Now, soothed Mary, her spoonful of sugar and strychnine voice deeper once more. "Stop being silly. You aren't going anywhere. We're beginning the BABY program." As she said it, I realized for Mary, BABY didn't mean be a better you. It meant her baby. "This will calm you down, I think," she said, hitting a brown button on the computer panel. A tiny amount of a blue substance darted along one of the tubes towards me, and I felt its soporific touch seconds later. "Good. Now you just sit nice and still," Mary murmured, hitting a different button, "because this is going to hurt." A low-pitched whine began, and I felt as though my skin were being burned with cigarettes. The tubes connecting me to the console began to slowly fill with rancid-looking mush, making its way towards the monstrosity in the tube. The fat I had carried for years was being siphoned off. This time, I let the darkness take me. I woke up later that day, or night, or the next day, I don't know. I woke up back in my room, a big tray of that non-food next to me. I felt empty, drained. The mush I forced down my throat seemed to help. I cried for a while, until there were no tears left. I must have slept because all too soon, Mary and the Tweedle twins were back, taking me into the circular room once more. I noticed nothing different then. The process repeated itself, and my captors seemed neither pleased nor angry. It's been some time since that first treatment. After a few sessions, I found I was able to retain consciousness for a little while, and then a little while longer. And now I usually make it long enough to feel the needles retract from my skin. When I stay aware, I avoid looking at the tubes or the cables or what is happening to my stomach, thighs, and other fat-laden areas. I watch the baby in its tube. She is still so small and frail, and her skin looks like cracked leather, but I'm sure she's lost her green tinge.